It's early May in New England, and I wanted to show you my stay-at-home mini indoor garden greenhouse. So the only thing that I bought here is the LED lighting system from Fruition Seeds. You can also get it from Happy Leaf LED, and I found these lights to be quite effective in helping the plants grow. But everything else here, pretty much I used what's in the house, trying to set the system up. We are facing a southward set of windows here, but let me show you how I put this together. I just found two pieces of wood, or several pieces of wood in the house, and pretty much nailed it together here and horizontally here. And then that was still not sturdy enough, so I glued it and then clamped it, and then that allowed the lighting system to be more secure. And so this I found to be the most secure, and it didn't really move very much. And then the other way that I had to maneuver the system was by using duct tape, because I didn't have any more clamps, and that worked out okay too. And then the last system was just rubber banding it as best as I could, and putting extra pieces of wood as weight. But overall, this has been pretty secure. The lights are off right now just for better viewing, but really I actually wanted to show you the plant situation. I used a lot of yogurt containers, takeout containers, whatever I could find, old salad containers. Of course, you need to make holes in the bottom of all of these, and what I did was I used a screwdriver like this, and I used a hammer to punch holes through. Oftentimes, instead of making a nice little hole, it would make a linear crack, and so in those situations I would use a pair of scissors to then make a hole. So for example, here, this one is probably not as nice or big of a hole as it should be, but that's the general idea. We have here some greens that I am just planted to eat while we're inside at home. We have some peppers in the middle row. This is what it looks like once the lights are plugged in and the windows are fully open. It does get a plenty amount of light here. And although it's a warm day today, the temperatures are still going down to the 30s at night. And so I want to wait until at least it's in the mid 40s, that there's absolutely no chance of it going down to the 30s. And since it's getting plenty of light here, I'm going to just wait. And so that probably is going to be not for another couple weeks. So when I see in the forecast that there is a nice row of days where there are no nights of 30s or even low 40s, then I'm going to start taking these plants out and hardening them off, meaning that the plants will go out for a few hours each day, increasing over about a week span, so that they will have adjusted to the increased lighting, increased variations in temperature and wind before planting. And that's really important, because otherwise they sort of go into the shock system and they can sort of all die, and that would be quite tragic after all this effort. The lighting system, for this one, you want the lights to be 6 inches from the plants, and so it has this nice way of increasing, pulling, and dropping, and so elevating and lowering depending on how high the plants are. And every lighting system varies on what they recommend. I really like the LED system because you don't have to change out the fluorescent light bulbs, and so it's definitely more economical, less waste, and takes up less space. So one of the things I wanted to show you was actually some of the problems I'm having, and why I think that's happening here. So here is an example of damping off. So you can see right here that the stem has gotten shriveled up. The plant itself looks green, still surprisingly, but it's pretty much dead, because there's nothing that's gonna keep it up. And this is really more of the soil having gotten too wet, and fungus has pretty much destroyed the stem here. And so as soon as I saw this, and you can tell it started happening with this plant a little bit, where it was starting to lean, and definitely happening with this plant. So as soon as I saw that happening, I actually I got this little fan from one of the other rooms, and I had this on just for extended periods of time, and it really just helped have the rest of the plants in this area survive. So basically, I've lost this one, I probably have lost this one there, and so we'll see how the rest of the plants go. And I stopped watering for so long. Actually, this one is starting to look kind of sad. So, you know, it's really a balance of not overwatering, but then of course not underwatering. The ideal situation is to water from the bottom so that the top part remains as dry as possible and the roots are getting the water. And so I had been doing that, where I was just actually watering from the bottom, but even in that situation you can actually overwater, because what happened was there was just not enough air circulation before the fan. It was a warm space, and fungus destroyed this plant here. But now I'm going to try to gently water the other plants, but still have the fan on intermittently. The other thing I wanted to show you was the problem I was having with this plant. So this is actually a marigold, and it was actually doing really well, and all of a sudden it started having this very wilty, sad look, and I was thinking, well, it's getting enough light, it's getting enough water, it's got enough fertilizer, and then what I realized was that it happened soon after a transplant, soon after watering, and the plant, the bottom, was just not getting enough drainage, and so I actually ended up making a bigger hole on the bottom. So this is actually after I went back and made a bigger hole. But what I had done with this pot was I had cracked it, but I hadn't really made a hole. So what was happening was, to me, I felt like it was getting root rot. So basically what that is that the soil is too wet, not draining fast enough, and so the roots are rotting, and so it's getting this very kind of dehydrated look, even though there's enough water, because the root system is dying off. So basically I'm trying to dry off as much of it as possible, but not get completely dry, because you do still want some moisture. So, but right now that's not the problem. Right now still it's too wet. So I made sure that it's getting it's in a space where there's plenty of drainage and not sitting in water. But its neighboring plants are doing perfectly well. So I know it's not because of light, and it got the same amount of fertilizer. So the other plants are happy here. And then we have some tomato plants and other seedlings that overall they're doing well. So it's been a fun project. You want to use potting soil and not just regular soil from the outside. You can certainly use many of the containers that you end up recycling, whether it be yogurt containers, takeout containers, salad containers. You just want to make sure you get adequate drainage, and so that instead of just simply cracking it, you want to actually make an adequate size hole. Try to water from the bottom instead of from the top. And my fat separator I use as my watering container here. And these are actually craft paper that I had used with my kids at home to further reflect the light back to the plants. So I hope you find this helpful, and happy gardening to you all.